you do not need grammar in order to understand Arabic. True or false? Before you answer that question, you should push back and say, what do you mean by grammar and what do you mean by understand? Because with those two terms ambiguous, then the question is sort of misleading. Hopefully you can see that. So grammar can conceivably mean low yield terminology, categorizations, and things that if a student is unaware of them, the technical terms, then it doesn't really matter one way or another. So is grammar referring to scattered rules without rhythm, without rhyme, without any relative importance? Or is grammar referring to core grammar that is what makes Arabic understandable? And number two, when you say understand, are you referring to just the rough gist of a sentence? Or do you mean deep, precise understanding of Quranic Arabic? So when you're reading and you're reciting, then you can see exactly why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose the particular words He chose and the arrangement. There's deep layers of meaning that are embedded within the Quranic verses because the Quran is miraculously eloquent. So by understanding, are you talking about this high level of understanding that dumbfounded the pre-Islamic Arab, that the Bedouin, he heard the verses and he fell off the camel and he's prostrating, and they say, what are you doing? He's prostrating. I'm prostrating to these verses. So is that the level of understanding you're talking about in that statement? So you need to be clear. Or are you talking about just the rough gist? This is important that we clarify the terms before judging whether the statement is even true or not. So since there's two possibilities on the word grammar and there's two possibilities on the word understand, that would give us a total of 4 interpretations for this statement, and let's walk you through them one by one. It would mean you do not need low impact, largely unnecessary and irrelevant grammar in order to understand the rough gist of simple sentences. So if I pull up al-walad yadhabu ila al-madrasa and I give you the meanings of the words, and I tell you that walad means child, yadhab is a verb that means to go, the base letter meaning is to go. I can't tell you that it means goes, because then that would be cheating, because then I'd be giving you grammar, right? And then ila is to, and al-madrasa is school, and I tell you to translate and explain the sentence, and I don't give you any grammar, would you be able to do it? The answer is yes, you would be, because the sentence is simple and the words are arranged and there's no ambiguity and there's no comprehension issue to solve. So grammar does not play a role. So you know the vocabulary, you don't know the detailed rules. I tell you what the words mean and I don't give you the underlying grammar. Will you be able to understand it? The answer is yes, you'll get the rough gist of it. Now, if we give you a more complex sentence and we do the same thing and I tell you the meanings of the words and I tell you to guess what you think it means, you'll have a general idea of what the sentence means. So if grammar is referring to low yield categorizations and understanding is referring to the lowest level of understanding, which is rough gist, then the statement is true. But that's not what students have in their minds when they're considering joining a premium program, because when they want to understand, they don't want the rough gist of what sentences are. They want precise understanding. So the second possibility is that grammar is still referring to low yield categorization, largely unimportant details of whether the rafa is reflected with a real dhamma or whether it's reflected with an assumed dhamma. Like ismi Muhammad, it means my name is Muhammad, and ismi should have been ismui with the dhamma on the meme, but the ya is necessitating the kasra. So we say the ismi word is mubtada and it's marfu with an assumed dhamma on the meme, which has been prevented from pronunciation due to the ya necessitating kasra. So what I just did there is I gave you an example of low yield, largely unimportant grammar. If you don't know that, you still understand that my name is Muhammad. So grammar is still referring to low yield, but understanding is referring to precise, accurate understanding of classical Quranic Arabic. We're talking about the books of the scholars without vowels, and we're talking about verses of the Quran. So you don't need this in order to do this. So we say this is true. You don't need the low impact technical jargon and the terminology and the scattered rules in order to get a precise understanding of the Quran, because the ancient Arabians, like the Sahabah and the companions, did not formally know those terms. And yet they were masters of the language because they lived the grammar. They lived the grammar. So there's labels and there's the underlying mechanism that differentiate between the roles of the nouns. So now to get that underlying mechanism that differentiates between the roles of the nouns, you can acquire it through being exposed to patterns for thousands of hours, which is what the ancient Arabians, they grew up with the language, so they're exposed, and they're only exposed to that, and they're not exposed to any incorrect way of doing it. So over time, what happens is the patterns are embedded within their subconscious, and they understand it, and they don't need the labels that modern students today need. So those labels are unimportant, and it's possible to understand Arabic Arabic, like the example I gave you. So that would still be true. It would still be true. The third possibility is grammar is referring to high impact grammar, which is what I teach in my opening days of class. And I have here a video that's 3 hours long and it's been watched like almost 300,000 times now. And all I do in that session is I give you the most broadly applicable meaning generating grammar. It's not categorization. It's not things that are scattered rules with no rhythm, with no rhyming, with no relative importance. So in other words, high impact grammar. So you do not need high impact grammar in order to get the rough gist of a sentence. Okay, so this is the third interpretation of the statement. So is it true? Is it false? The answer is it's true. It's true. So you can get by. So if you're looking for survival Arabic, like at an airport and you need to go to the washroom, you say toilet, toilet, and then you say that in Arabic, or you're just trying to communicate that the boy goes to the school and the sentence is relatively simple and there's not a lot of ambiguity there and you don't understand how the language works, but you know the meanings of the words. So in that situation, would you be able to get the rough gist of what's being said? The answer is yes. So it's still true. Okay, now we get to the big one. You do not need high impact grammar in order to receive a precise understanding of the Qur'an and classical Arabic and the books of the scholars. This is utterly false. And turns out that this is the one that most students have in their minds. When they're thinking about grammar, when they're thinking about understanding, they're thinking about this. On the understanding side, they're not looking for the rough gist. They're looking for precise, accurate understanding. You see, so this is false, right? And this is the deception, because course promoters that use this statement, they give examples from the top 3 categories and they try to highlight that grammar is unimportant and you don't start with grammar, you start with vocabulary. And they give the boy goes to the school example and they talk about toilets and they talk about airports, but they don't explain to you what they mean by grammar. And if you ask me, in all likelihood, those course promoters do not even understand the distinction I gave you. And the evidence and the proof is that they use scholarly quotes in order to convince their viewers that starting with grammar is problematic. And what you should do is you should not worry about grammar at all. And you should spend all of your time acquiring vocabulary first about yourself, like about roughly 500 words. And then you learn more vocabulary and you memorize words about your surroundings, like the weather and the things around you, your environment. And then you learn more words, maybe another 2,000 words that relate to your interests and your hobbies. And then you start talking about abstract ideas. So quietly what's happening is from comprehension, it's moving to talking. But whoever came to you with that as their primary goal, talking is not the primary goal anyways. So there's some shifts, there's multiple shifts happening here. So it's rough gist and the overall meaning of the sentence and simple sentences, because there's a difference between simple sentences and complex sentences. So grammar is only needed in complex sentences. Because like dhahaba Zaydun, for example, there's 2 words there and it's a full sentence. It means Zayd went. So if you know that dhahaba mean went, and if you know that Zayd is the name of an individual, then there's no issue there. There's no comprehension issue that needs to be solved. So grammar does not even enter the equation. So if I give you an example of a sentence that's so simple that grammar doesn't enter the equation in order to convince you that grammar is unimportant, then this is misleading and it's misguided and it's deeply misguided. And hopefully you can see that. But if you have a long sentence like this masjid which Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam built in Sham is Baytul Maqdis, هذا المسجد الذي بناه إسحاق في الشام هو بيت المقدس, sentence like that, or هذه هي البئر التي يشرب منها الناس, this is the very well from which people drink during the days of Hajj. Or here's another sentence, ولا ينفع الناس بخزائن الأرض إلا من كان حفيظا عليما, that the only person that will benefit the people with the treasures of the earth is the one who is both protective and knowledgeable. So that's a sentence. وَلَا يَنْفَعُ النَّاسَ بِخَزَائِنِ الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا مَنْ كَانَ حَفِيظًا عَلِيمًا. There's a great deal of words there. It's a sentence. So how do you understand that sentence? So if I threw that sentence on you and I told you to pause the video and write in the comments, how do you translate that sentence? I've done it in the past. I put the sentence out there and it's a 50-50. And people that are intermediate students that have been studying for years struggle with that. And I tell you what the words mean. That لَن يَنْفَعُ is a verb that means to benefit, as in benefit someone else. And nas means people. And then we have the word be, and then khaza'in, and then al-ard. All of it is common words. And then we have the word hafidhan, man kana hafidhan aliman, and there's the illa in between. So how do you do that? How do you translate that? So we've done this with intermediate students, and people have misjudged it. And I'll throw some comments on the screen just to prove that I'm not making this up. They misjudged it. So that is not representative of what you find in the books of the scholars. So if you open up a book by Ibn Taymiyyah, for example, or Imam al-Ghazali, or one of the tafsir books, whether it be a simple tafsir or more complex tafsir, the sentences you'll find in those books is not represented by al-waladu yadhabu ila al-madrasa. It's represented more by this one here. وَلَا يَنْفَعُ النَّاسَ بِخَزَائِنِ الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا مَنْ كَانَ حَفِيظًا عَلِيمًا. So I could give you the meanings of the words and you'll still struggle with it, right? So the translation is the only person that can benefit the people with the treasures of the earth is he who is. Or no one will benefit the people with the treasures of the earth except the person who. So the question is, the yanfa'u, the verb, is it carrying a pronoun? Is there a he pronoun inside la yanfa'u, yes or no? So if you said yes, then that's the problem I'm trying to highlight, because the verb is actually empty and the fa'il is the man that's coming after the illa. So now in English, when you do istisna using an illa in English, then there's an affirmative version, there's a negative version. So the affirmative version is the tribe came to me except Zayd. The negative version is no one came to me except Zayd. No one came to me, so you use the word no one in order to exclude, because you have to exclude from a group. In Arabic, in the affirmative, it will be like ja'ani al-qawmu illa Zaydan. But in the negative, there's actually two versions. There's a full version and there's an abbreviated version. So the full version is ma ja'ani ahadun. No one came to me, and the word ahad means no one. Ma ja'ani ahadun illa Zaydun illa Zaydan. You have a choice. You can say ma ja'ani ahadun illa Zaydun, or you can say ma ja'ani ahadun illa Zaydan, and they're both correct. Now Arabic allows in the negative for you to remove the word ahad. And if you do that, then whatever grammatical positioning the word ahad would have had in the case of it being present, that role now shifts to the word after the illa. So the $1,000,000 question here is that the man, illa man kana, the man there, what state is it in? So is it in Rafa? Is it in Nasab? What is it? The correct answer is it's in Rafa because it's fa'il. But then Arabic allows the abbreviation, in English doesn't. So we need to represent the missing ahad word that should have been there in the Arabic. So when we translate, we said no one will benefit the people with the treasures of the earth except he who is both protective and knowledgeable. Or you could cancel out the double negative and say the only person that will benefit the people with the treasures of the earth is he who is both protective and knowledgeable. Now I ask you in the name of Allah, anshuduka billahi, this sentence, could a normal person reasonably be expected to guess the meaning of it without understanding what I just told you, just by knowing the meanings of the words? The answer is no. The answer is no. And does it resemble al-waladu yadhabu ila al-madrasa? The answer is no. Because over there's no comprehension issue to solve, and over here there is. There's a massive comprehension issue to solve. So the fourth interpretation of the statement is that you do not need high impact grammar in order to understand the deeper meanings of the Qur'an and the books of the scholars. This is false. And this is utterly false. And the deception is that course promoters are presenting the statement and they're giving examples for 1, 2, and 3, but really they're confusing people into thinking meaning number 4. So it's a fallacy. Whether they're doing it knowingly or whether they're doing it unknowingly, it's bad either way. If they're doing it unknowingly, then it reveals cluelessness, and it reveals that they don't understand the distinction between low impact categorizations, what we can call labeling, or scattered rules, and the things that generate meaning. I gave you a little segment there to show you an example of high impact grammar. So most teachers, they don't teach like this. They go through textbooks and they don't understand what comprehension issues the rules are solving. So I've been saying this, that this is not a debate, like whether grammar should be studied first or whether grammar should be delayed or whether you should start with vocabulary, because when I presented the sentence to you, I gave you the meanings of the words. So when we start reading in the 3rd week of class, we are giving the student the meanings of the words. So there's no vocabulary issue. So to amass words and to gain vocabulary without grammar is quite possibly the most useless activity ever. There's nothing more useless than it. And the irony is that the people that are pushing for this, okay, it's brand new, like it's never happened in the history of Islam, but the people that are pushing for it now, they eventually go on to teach grammar. After 6 months or however, like you'd have to ask them in their curriculum, when does grammar study begin? If somebody could tell me in the comments when they do it, that would be even more revealing. At some point they will study grammar, but they'll study the scattered rules version. They'll study the low impact, the things that don't really generate meaning, and they won't be able to frame the rules as solutions to comprehension issues. So this is the worst of both worlds. So the student is deprived from the fascinating, okay, high impact, highly important grammar that could be mastered in like 3 hours. So they're deprived of that, and it could be reinforced through guided reading, and the student can know it really well in a surprisingly short period of time. But they're deprived of that, and then eventually when they are given grammar 6 months down the road, they're given the worst possible representation of grammar, the stuff that doesn't even matter so much. And the evidence is that the course promoter that I'm talking about, and at this stage right now you probably already know who I'm talking about, but I don't have to mention his name, it's unimportant. He gave examples from 2 contemporary scholars, Sheikh Abdul Rahim, who's the author of the Madinah series. He was interviewing Sheikh, the author of the Madinah series, and he said that, I'm paraphrasing, that if you ask people that are studying other languages like Spanish or French, what are you doing? They'll tell you that I'm studying Spanish. But if you ask a student of Arabic what you're doing, they'll say that I'm studying Arabic grammar. And the Sheikh went on to say that this is a mindset problem, and it's all wrong, because instead of understanding, he said this, instead of understanding full sentences and trying to wrap your head around the meaning of sentences, people are preoccupied in categorizing the ism, the fi'l, and the harf. Subhanallah. Okay, so what the sheikh, he's agreeing with me, and he's saying that there's two kinds of grammar. There's sentence level fluency grammar, there's the grammar that contributes to sentence level fluency, and there's the low impact. These aren't the things that students need up front. They don't need this. You don't have to front load these details because it's low impact. So he's talking about that. And the more revealing example was the other sheikh, the author of the Bayna Yadayk books, because when asked the same question about whether beginners should start with grammar or not, the sheikh responded and he said that you don't need it. And the example he gave was low impact. And then in the same clip, he said, but Nahu from the meaning generation, I'm paraphrasing, from Nahu from a meaning generation perspective is important. It shouldn't be held back. But the fact that the word in Ismi Muhammad, the ism is a mubtada and it's marfu with an assumed dhamma, and the dhamma is assumed because the letter is preoccupied, the meme is preoccupied because of the kasra that the ya necessitated. I mean, that's overkill. That's overkill. But the interviewer, this completely flew over his head, and that's a massive comprehension failure. And the reason I'm choosing to speak about this bluntly is because it's escalated from a private pedagogical concern. If you're telling people that grammar is unimportant and you're not explaining to them what you mean by grammar, and then you're linking it to understanding, and you're not explaining to them that what kind of understanding you're talking about, and the examples you give actually reveal that you're talking about the rough gist, guessing kind of understanding. And then in the same video you say, oh, if you want to understand Quranic Arabic, so you're no longer dependent on translations, then check out the link below and book your call. Don't bait and switch, and don't solve one problem which people don't have. People don't care about speaking. So instead of a text comprehension problem that people have, what you're doing is you're giving them a solution for output, and their struggle is with input. And then you imply that if you get good at speaking, and if you get good at holding a conversation, speaking about yourself, speaking about your environment, speaking about the abstract ideas, then automatically, and you study grammar. But then again, you're not really clarifying what you mean by grammar. Because the companions and the Sahabah, they didn't have the labeling, but they had the grammar. So today, the modern student, if they want to emulate the Sahabah, sure, okay? So you can avoid all the grammar terminology, and you can recognize the patterns. Recognize the patterns and do what Sibawayh did. In other words, you become the Sibawayh of today. You, the modern student who doesn't even know, my name is Ahmed and I'm from Cairo and this is the washroom. You become the Sibawayh and you do what he did. And you go look into the language. But how are you going to do that? Theoretically, it's possible. You look into the language and you identify all of the patterns, and then you come up with your own internal system to figure out from where to where is the mubtada, where to where is the khabar, and you figure out your own internal system to differentiate between the roles and the nouns, or you study the books of the scholars. There's only two ways to do it. Either massive, painful, slow exposure, thousands of hours recognizing patterns, internalizing them, or you rely on the efforts and the work of the scholars that have already done all of that for us. And they've recognized the patterns and they've documented them into the books of grammar, and then you study one of those books with a teacher who knows how to properly explain what's going on. A teacher who's trained, he's not just paraphrasing, but he understands the objective of the author. He's able to think at the level of the scholars. So you have two paths. There's no third path. There's two paths. So what I do is that I front load a particular core of grammar which is required in order to begin any reading, and that's freely available here on YouTube. It's a 3-hour video and anybody could just watch it. Okay, the person I'm speaking about, the course promoter, he can go watch it himself, and he could identify what parts of that 3-hour presentation is unnecessary, because I'm sure there are a few things in there that could have been suppressed and could have been held back, and the things that have been talked about in that 3-hour presentation, distinguish and say, okay, here's the comprehension issue that this is solving, here's why this is important, here's how this will help the student begin reading, and then you start reading in week 3. So in order to answer the question of whether a beginner should start with vocabulary building and not worry about grammar for months, or whether they should start with this high impact core grammar that could be mastered in a surprisingly short period of time, we don't go ask the author of the Madinah book, and we don't ask the author of the Bayna Yadayk book, because this is not an issue where taqlid even plays a role. It's not taqlid, okay? So this is not something that authority even... So when somebody does that, it's revealing. When somebody quotes scholars in order to convince their audience that Arabic should be studied in a particular way, then what they're doing is they're borrowing authority, and there's some marketing motive there. And it's not based on any deep insight. So that's what I would say. So to settle the question, you should invest the 3 hours, go through the workshop, and see whether it overwhelms you or whether it fascinates you. And how do you feel after you go through it? Better yet, don't even invest the 3 hours, read the comments. There's about 500, 600 comments underneath that. And they're not just Jazakallah, very good video comments. They're actual people, they're writing long, multi-paragraph comments talking about how exactly they found the 3-hour workshop. And if you don't have 3 hours, then recently, a couple of days ago, I actually put together a PDF, which is a watch equivalent summary of the entire workshop. And I read it myself. It took me 37 minutes to read it. So devote the 37 minutes. The link to this is in the description below. Read it and read the comments. Then you can decide what you want to do after that. So let me know in the comments what you thought about all of that. And I look forward to speaking with you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.